To understand the concept of cutting property, let us go to the model ribbon, and under the model ribbon we have this cutting option. So once you click on the cutting option, you have two major options, that is create cutting property and remove cutting property. So the create cutting property, as the name suggests, shall be used for creating the cutting property, and remove cutting property shall be used to remove the cutting property. So in this case we shall majorly focus on this create cutting property. And under the create cutting property, you have two options. One is specific and the other one is general. Okay. So let us now try to understand what is the difference between both of these options. Okay. So for that, let us just go to a curve library which we have already created. So in this curve library, you have two members which is assigned along the same path. Okay. So one is this member. Okay. And then we also have a member that is present inside. So it is something like this. So if you want to see the different members separately, let us just click on this. And if you click on hide selected, you have the outer member. Okay. And then if you just select the outer member and if you click on hide, you can see this is the inner member. Okay. So now if you go to model and let's click on cutting. So under this we have the first is specific. So the specific option is used to create cutting property inside a particular library. Okay. So for example, in this case, you have two members and both of these members are inside this curve library mode. So if you want to create a cutting property inside this curve library, then you can use this specific option. Okay. So now in this case, let us assume that you need to cut the outer member using the inner member. Okay. So in such case, the target that shall be the outer member, and then the tool that shall be the inner member. And now let's click on apply button. Now if you just select the inner member, okay, so let us hide this plane. And if you just select the inner member and let me hide this, and if you go to the left view, you can see that the inner member is used to cut the outer member. Okay, so this is the major use of specific command. And next you have the general option. So for that, let us go to the library. So the general command that can be used for creating the cutting property inside the library as well as in higher modes. Okay. So sometimes what happens is that you might have two members, and the two members, when they are assembled in the assembly unit, they might overlap with each other, and then you might need to apply the cutting property. So in such cases, you need to use the general option. Okay. So in this case, you have this member. Okay. And now let us just go to the assembly unit. If you just go to the assembly unit, modify. So over here, if you just select the library, so this is general target library. Okay. And then over here, you have this is also general target library. And then over here, you have a general tool library. Okay, so we have just given the name as general target and general tool, but the point to note is that you have a overlap. Okay, so you have a overlap between these two beams at this location and between these two beams over here. Okay, so if you want to just hide a particular member, you can see this is pure rectangle member. Okay, and if you want to just hide these members, you can see this is a pure rectangle member. Okay. So now let us consider that you want to make cutting based on this overlap. Okay. So now you don't want this overlap to happen, and now you want to add a cutting property. So as these two are different curve libraries, okay, so you have one curve library and there's a separate curve library. So now you need to use the general cutting property. Okay. So for that, let us go into this particular curve library. So first we go to the general target, and in this we go to the cutting property. And now let us select general. Okay. So now let us assume this would be the target. Okay. So this member would be cut. So let us select this particular member and let's click on apply button, and let's click on change, and let's click on the apply button. Let's click on yes. Next, let us go to the next library, and this general tool that shall be acting as the tool. Okay. So let's go to cutting and let us choose general. And let us select tool, and let us choose this member, and let's click on apply, and let's click on the green tick. Yes. Now if we go back to the assembly unit, you can see that the target member is cut by this member. Okay, so if you just go to the top view and if you just select this particular member and if you hide it, then you can see that the tool member has cut the target member. Okay, and if you just hide both of these members, then you can see that the tool member as it is intact and as it remains as it is. Okay, so the only change that happens is that the target member that gets cut. So this is how you would be able to use the specific and the general cutting member. Okay, so I will just cover the other part as well. So if you want to remove the cutting property, let's just go to general target, modify cutting, and then remove the cutting property. Let us click on general. Okay, and let us select the target and let's click on apply. And similarly, let us go back to the general tool and let's go to cutting and let's select a general. For that, remove cutting property, general. Let us select this particular member, apply. Okay, so now we have removed the cutting property. Now to verify, let us go back to the assembly unit, and over here if you see that the cutting property is removed, and then to verify just select both of these members and you can see that these members are not cut. So this is how you will be able to use the cutting property.